Welcome to this very special broadcast from Israel. I'm Palki Sharma and I'm standing at Tel Aviv's historic Rabin Square. Over the next 30 minutes, we focus on the India-Israel relationship and how it's changing. "44 years after Israel came into existence, India finally established diplomatic ties with it. But the relationship has blossomed over the past 3 years. What was once described as a clandestine affair is now being called an open love. And the man behind the shift is Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi. In the year 2006, the then Chief Minister of Gujarat was not welcome in many Western countries. But when he travelled to Israel with Union Agriculture Minister Sharma, the red carpet was rolled out. Modi repaid the Israelis in kind. He opened the doors of his state for investment and technology cooperation to Israeli companies, laying the foundation of a relationship that would grow stronger in the years ahead.
He was our guest in 2006. At that time, of course, he was the Chief Minister of Gujarat, and he came to the WATEC, which is the Water Exhibition of Israel. And he came along with Mr. Pawar, at that time the Agriculture Minister, and some other Chief Ministers from Rajasthan as well. And we escorted them through their visit to Israel and watching agriculture fields and technologies and so on. And he was fascinated by what Israel had to offer at that time. And following this trip, many Israeli companies came to Gujarat and set shop, whether it's Netafim that expanded or at that time another company in the dairy sector. So Gujarat became a home for Israelis that wanted ease of doing business.
Businessmen from Israel foothold in India and being challenged by a different business culture and bureaucratic red tape found welcome change in Gujarat. The same year, another high-profile leader from India cancelled his visit. Then Defence Minister Pranab Mukherjee's planned trip to Israel was reportedly called off because of Israeli military operations in Gaza and the Lebanon war. A few years later, when Nitin Gadkari went to Israel as leader of the opposition, Prime Minister Netanyahu met him. It was an unusual gesture towards a man whose party was out of power for the second straight term. But it did not surprise observers. The BJP has consistently taken a pro-Israel line in its election manifestos. Narendra Modi took the first steps to concretize an old friendship, giving greater visibility to this relationship when he decided to meet Israeli Prime Minister Netanyahu on the sidelines of the United Nations General Assembly in 2014, despite reported hesitation on the part of many in the Ministry of External Affairs. Since then, high-profile bilateral meetings and visits have grown. Last October, Pranab Mukherjee became the first Indian president to visit Israel. Foreign Minister Sushma Swaraj was there this January to mark 25 years of diplomatic ties. She too has an old Israeli link. Swaraj earlier headed the India-Israel Parliamentary Friendship Group. In all, this is a team that Israelis share a rapport with. Prime Ministers Netanyahu and Modi are both seen as strong leaders, whose worldview finds convergence on many issues. And hence, the strong foreign policy move to de-hyphenate Israel and Palestine. The bedrock of the India-Israel relationship has always been defense. Even when the two countries did not have diplomatic ties, they were engaging on strategic issues. Here's a look at how India became Israel's biggest defense importer. The year was 1971. At the helm of affairs in India and Israel, two strong women leaders, Indira Gandhi and Golda Meir. The Bangladesh crisis was unfolding. India required a type of heavy mortar to support operations of the Mukti Bahini. Israeli defense forces had it. India turned to an armaments firm that had served as a secret conduit for Israeli weapons in 1962 and 65 too. But this time, Tel Aviv went further. It took a public position against Pakistan, calling the Pakistani repression in East Bengal a human tragedy amounting to genocide. It was the only country apart from India which called the region East Bengal and not Pakistan. Its condemnation was stronger than India's closest ally, Soviet Union. All this at a time when the two countries had no diplomatic ties. In the 1990s, Israel did not really figure in India's list of defense suppliers. But between 2005 and 2014, Israel accounted for 7% of India's military equipment deliveries, the third highest after Russia and the US. We visited a defense technology lab on the outskirts of Tel Aviv that has been selling in India for 20 years. This company makes parts for the Barak 8 anti-missile defense system, among other things. It is also working with Indian scientists on the Akash anti-ballistic missile defense shield.
Our business today in India is a multi-million-dollar per year. We plan to expand. These days, in fact, we are in the process of establishing a local company with an Indian partner in order to expand our business, in order to support our customers' requirements for offset, as well as to make in India support.
Companies like Kratos are prepared to make in India, giving another boost to Indo-Israeli defense partnership. Air and naval defense chiefs from both sides have visited each other in the last 2 years. IPS officer trainees from India have been visiting Israel as the two sides engage on homeland security, border management, police modernization and cyber crimes. There's a joint working group on counter-terrorism. Prime Minister Modi's visit is expected to focus on long-pending defense deals.
I'm not talking about the defence relationship in any form. Defence will not take the major brunt of this visit by any form or any means.
Diplomats remain tight-lipped about what's on the table. India and Israel have recently sealed a $2 billion defence deal, their biggest ever. And while exact figures may be hard to come by, the broader trends are clear. They have re-injected a new vigour in bilateral ties. And the thrust of it remains the defence partnership. When you speak to diplomats on either side, they ask you to focus on the expanding relationship, from student exchange and trade to agriculture and water resource management. Israeli companies want to increasingly offer solutions and make in India. Of course, conditions apply. The press is obsessed with defence deals, and there's so much more in bilateral ties that affects people directly. This is the common refrain of diplomats, and to a certain extent, true too.
More than 600-700 million Indian people are living off the land in one form or another. That's a huge amount of people, and if we can be of assistance in working together in creating some of the technologies and make them useful for India, of course that's enormously important for both countries. So I think that's what we're going to be sticking with in this visit and in the entire relationship.
India and Israel have made rapid progress in technology exchange in the fields of agriculture and water resource management. Often hailed for making the desert bloom, Israel's drip irrigation technology is now widely used in India. The November 2016 visit of President Rivlin focuses on these areas. 10 of the 26 proposed centres of excellence being developed have already been commissioned in Haryana, Maharashtra, Gujarat and Rajasthan. Right now I am in the industrial area, industrial zone on the outskirts of Tel Aviv, and this behind me is the lab and testing unit of a company called WaterGen. Why is it important? Because in the less than 48 hours that the Indian Prime Minister is going to spend in this country, he will visit this facility. They have developed a technology to create drinking water out of thin air. We'll see how they do it, but they are collaborating with the New Delhi Municipal Corporation or the NDMC to set up units across the national capital in India to solve the drinking water problem, and they're also going to be making in India. So on a lot of counts, they are going to collaborate with India, and that is what explains the Prime Minister's interest in this facility. Let's go in and see what they have. WaterGen is one of the many companies that is working with Indian partners to solve the drinking water problem.
We're putting at the top of the agenda as agreement between both countries the issues that face the majority of Indian people and the majority of Israeli people actually, which is the water and the agricultural sectors, which we believe we can work very closely with in all fields, new technologies, reclamation of water, wastewater, creation of water, etc. And I think that both countries, both peoples have an enormous amount to gain from in this relationship on the field of agriculture and water.
Bilateral trade has grown from $200 million in 1992 to over $5 billion in 2011. More than half of it is trade in diamonds, which accounts for a huge number of Indian diamond merchants in Israel. Indian companies like Infosys, Wipro, Tech Mahindra, Tata and Sun Pharma have made investments in Tel Aviv. As Israeli companies look to make in India, some concerns remain.
My office here is in the Diamond Exchange. So in the Diamond Exchange, we have a lot of Indians around. In this very building, TCS has an office. State Bank of India is just across the street. So there is a growing interest from India in Israel. Infosys opened here an office, and Tech Mahindra and many other companies are looking into Israel. So it's in the business, it's in the academia, it's in the culture.
Prime Minister Modi's visit is also expected to breathe life into negotiations over a free trade agreement that have been languishing since 2014. Decades before the diplomats came, Jews of Indian origin were India's ambassadors in Israel. In the 70s and 80s, many of them came here, they spoke good English, were well educated and found good jobs. Many of them are community leaders today. We spoke to some of them. For perspective, we start with the numbers. In a country of 8 million people, approximately 85,000 are of Indian origin. The major waves of immigration happened in the 50s and the 60s, most of them from Maharashtra. They're called the Bene Israelis. Noah Masil is one of them. He came from Mumbai with his wife many decades back and runs a Marathi news magazine called My Boli.
When we started this monthly, so people here, they were no Marathi well, so they used to, some poets, some writers. So they said, let us start and people will read in Marathi. There is a lot of people, Marathi speakers. All our Indian Jews, they used to have a connection with India. And they like, the representative of India in Israel and in India from Israel. So they want the relation to be more.
Circulation has dropped as younger Indian Israelis do not speak Marathi. But people like Masil believe they're instrumental in keeping a culture alive and passing it on. Reena Pushkarna is another such figure. She claims to have introduced Indian food to Israel, says the Oslo peace talks began at her restaurant in 1992, and that she was the only Indian Israeli to have been invited by Prime Minister Narendra Modi for his swearing-in ceremony. There are also Indians from Kolkata called the Baghdadi Jews and those from Kerala called the Kochini Jews. While most of these are well integrated into the Israeli society, the recently declared Jews from the northeast called the Bnei Manash have been caught in controversy. Their DNA tests failed to show West Asian ancestry. Political leaders in Israel have accused people from third world countries of wanting to convert to Judaism for state benefits. Reports say many of them were settled in occupied territories in West Bank and Gaza and were treated as second-class citizens. The other significant number of Indians, more than 11,000 of them, are caregivers for the old and the infirm. The issue of giving work visas to Indian professionals is still work in progress between both sides. When India and Israel talk, the elephant in the room will be China. After having invested billions of dollars, China has become one of Israel's biggest trading partners. Netanyahu insists that his country does not share the same strategic relationship with China as it does with India. But some discomfort remains. Here's why. Like India, China established diplomatic ties with Israel in 1992. Also like India, China is one of the few countries in the world which shares harmonious relations with Israel, Palestine, Iran, and the Arab states at the same time. But unlike India, China's trade volume is more than $10 billion and growing. Also unlike India, Chinese labor gets work permits in Israel. 6,000 of them were given visas in the construction sector this year. They won't work in Jewish settlements because of security concerns. In contrast, Indians employed here are mostly caregivers. This is one of the things that has made the difference. Tel Aviv's new rail system, the first time a Chinese company has won the bid for a project so big. The two countries have made significant exchanges in the field of defense too. But America's concerns weigh Israel down, which remains Beijing's second largest foreign supplier of arms after Russia. In the year 2000, Israel cancelled the sale of Falcon airborne warning and control systems to China under US pressure. Israel and China have not seen eye to eye on the issue of Palestine too. with Beijing publicly condemning Israeli actions in Gaza and West Bank on many occasions.
We have a very large relationship with China in the civilian field, which is of course higher than that of India. It's true, but I wouldn't say that China is our biggest import. Actually, it's not our biggest trading partner. Our biggest trading partner actually is the European Union.
It's an extremely delicate balancing act, being India's strategic ally and China's business partner, which shares a fraught relationship with India and has invested billions in India's biggest security headache, Pakistan. Prime Minister Narendra Modi's visit is a message, as much to his domestic constituency as the world at large. Here's a look at the reactions he's evoked. For the Indian students in Israel, it's the opportunity of a lifetime.
It's a very nice place for especially the researchers, and my experience is very nice here. That I didn't find anybody's like racism or something comment like that. I never heard like this.
Very friendly with Indians, even they are. Doesn't matter which religion or caste they belongs. Whether they are Palestinian or they are Israeli or Orthodox Jewish, they always welcome.
For the Palestinians, a bitter pill to swallow.
We do have some serious internal problems and issues. First is the issue of the division, and this division is quite detrimental to Palestinian rights, to our standing globally, and to our relations with an international solidarity movement, let alone domestic activism. You have no way of protecting your own rights, human rights and fundamental freedoms, because this is a system of tremendous injustice and control. It permeates every aspect of your lives, and it doesn't leave you any room to act.
And for the Israelis, the proof of his intent to recognize old friends.
This is a visit of historic proportions. It's the first time ever that a Prime Minister of India has visited Israel. In view of the developments, the wonderful developments of Israeli-Indian relations in the last 25 years, I think it's coming to a sort of a culmination with this visit, and we're really looking forward to it.
Modi's July visit will not have a Madison Square or Wembley-like extravaganza, but the Indian community is getting together to welcome their Prime Minister.